What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and on today's video I'm going to be going through just a little breakdown of my half marathon that I did not last weekend but the weekend before that. It was the Punta Gorda half marathon. I even put on the race shirt for this video. And if you haven't seen it, I have posted a race vlog I actually filmed while I was running, and that is available on the channel if you want to go and check it out before seeing this or after seeing this. Oh, I do have the medal, hung that up just so you guys can see that. Pretty nice medal. As far as medals go, this is a pretty good one. But I just wanted to go into, I guess, some of my numbers, some of my feelings about the race, coming into the race, during the race, and after the race. Oh, and this is the weekly running and training vlog, where actually the main purpose of this video is for you to tell me about your week of running. I want to hear about your successes, and I definitely want to hear about those setbacks. So go ahead and drop a comment about your week of running, and we'll talk about you in the comments. But for now, let's talk about my race. Now, many of you know that this was not a planned race. This wasn't a goal race. I decided to do this race 6 days before I ran it. And ultimately, my decision to run this race was A, because I was off from work that weekend, and B, the weather was going to be perfect. So because I only had 6 days, I couldn't adequately taper. But the week before the race, I did drop my volume just a little bit. I think 3 days before the race, I ran 4 miles. 2 days before the race, I took off completely, and then I ran 4 miles the day before the race and included some strides just to get my legs turning over. But I actually got to race day feeling quite good, and the temperature was perfect. It was 48 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 9 degrees Celsius. Just lovely. Now, like a lot of you, I want to know what I could possibly run before I go into a race. So I did look at a couple of race prediction sites, and most of the race prediction sites want to take a past race and they extrapolate your prediction from that time. And you might remember I ran the Jacksonville Marathon a couple of weeks before, and I ran a 3:09:57 at Jacksonville. And several of the online race predictors that just use that metric suggested that I was going to run a 1:31 in the half marathon. And then of course there was Chorus. I do wear my Chorus watch on every run, and that predicted a half marathon time of 1:24:21, which I knew was way too fast for me. And then coming in somewhere in the middle was Stride, and they suggested that I run a 1:29:33. So going into the Punta Gorda half marathon, my goal was to run sub 1:30. But here's the thing. Here's what I did. I actually set my virtual pacer on my Apple Watch to show where I was in relation to a 1:28 finish time. So the screen that I had on would show me if I was plus seconds or minus seconds away from the pace that would get me to the finish line at 1 hour and 28 minutes. So let's just go over to my Strava and let's take a look at some of the splits, how I started this race and how I ran the race. So right now you're looking at my Strava, and the first thing that sticks out to you is my official time, 1:26:24, and my elapsed time of 1:27:32. We're going to get to that in just a second. But let's just scroll down and we're going to come to some of these splits. And we can see first mile, a 6:30. Look, that was pretty hot. And I knew in the first mile that I was running a little faster than I could probably maintain. I can tell already I'm running a little fast. And then we can see I slowed down to 6:40, 6:36, 6:37. Now we're getting into things. Now it feels like I can hold on. But there's an important thing that I realized during this race, and that is that even if you're not feeling good in the beginning, we have to think back to how we think when we're doing our training. Remember, we never make any decisions in that first mile of the run. And even though I felt a bit off, felt like I was running a bit too fast in the first mile, I was able to settle into my pace, and I actually started feeling better, running faster than I expected. So with that, let's talk about race pacing as a whole. Let's go back over to Strava, and I'm going to scroll back up, and I want to go to analysis. We see my entire race broken down into mile splits. I am not upset with how I ran this race. Now, clearly I did run a positive split race, and we know that an ideal race is a negative split. I don't think it's too bad. What do you think? I want to draw your attention to the 5K split. When we look on Strava, we can see that the first 5K, I ran a 20:29. That's a little hot, but we know that I ran that first mile quite quickly. So if we look at the second 5K, 20:43, we can see that I slowed down 14 seconds over a 5K. I don't think that is absolutely horrible. In fact, it's probably more of a pace correction because I went out a little too hard. Now, if we look at the third 5K, we can see it is 20:46. Now, even though I slowed down, I only slowed down 3 seconds over 5K, which isn't that much. Then when we look at the fourth 5K, 20:51, yes, I slowed down another 5 seconds, but this tells me that I was maintaining a pretty good pace. And then we come to the finish, and you can see I finished in 1:27:32, and if we go back up to the overview, my official time was 1:26:44. Now, this is because when I crossed the finish line, I looked at my watch, and I saw that my watch said 13.01 miles. I knew that I wanted to run a full half marathon because I wanted this time to count for my metrics, not just the official time. That's all well and good, but I wanted it to count for my metrics, and I wanted to get that January half marathon badge on Strava, right? Sometimes we do funny things for the things that we want. But I wanted that badge and I got it. So a couple observations and a couple things that I did prior to running this race that I don't usually do. Now, when it comes time to fueling before this race, because I had to drive almost an hour down to Punta Gorda, I didn't really eat anything before the race. I did have a cup of coffee. Then during the race, because it was so cold, I only had 2 cups of water during the entire half marathon. And this may or may not be surprising to you, but I only took 1 gel. So 1 gel and 2 cups of water for the entire half marathon, and I actually felt great. There was not one point during the race that I felt like I was gonna bonk or I was running out of energy. Of course, my legs were getting heavy towards the end, but that's a normal feeling. Legs are getting heavy. Lungs are burning. But as far as fueling wise, I felt really good for the entire race. And I think it's because it was such a cold temperature, or at least colder than what I'm used to running. Let's just quickly run over to Strava again and let's have a look at heart rate. Now, honestly, I don't set my heart rate zones in Strava. However, if we look at it, it looks like I did about 50% in the tempo range and about 50% in the threshold range. And when I look at that, it seems like it's something that should be pretty accurate. Like if you're running half marathon, it seems like half in tempo, half in threshold makes sense to me. Let's just go to the Strava pace chart and let's turn on heart rate. Here we go. Yeah, the heart rate, I tell you what, this is the first time I'm looking at this when I've got it on your screen now. But this tells me how good it is for us to run in cooler temperatures, because looking at this, I had very minimal cardiac drift for the entire race, which is fantastic. We do see my heart rate drops out a little bit here. I am not sure why. It's right at the halfway point. I've actually got no explanation for why my heart rate dropped out. Oh, and I was wearing the Polar H10 heart rate monitor around my chest, so I can't just blame it on the inaccuracies from an optical heart rate sensor. The heart rate was accurate. But anyway, it seems to have come right back up. And if we scroll along, we can see that, yeah, I'm in the high 150s to low 160s, which is definitely a higher heart rate than I maintain for a marathon. But of course, a half marathon is only half that distance, so my heart rate should be higher because I don't have to hold on to that pace for as long. Oh, another observation I had about running the half marathon, because my normal focus is the marathon, is that the half marathon appeared in my mind very short to me. I remember thinking after the first 5K, I remember thinking, I don't know how I'm going to hold on to this pace. I don't know if I can hold on for another 10 miles. But my next thought was, I'm glad I only have to do it for 10 miles. And then, of course, once you get to the halfway point, this was a 2-loop course. I only had 6.5 miles to go, which is just over a 10K. And I pretty much run that distance every day. So it was very comforting to be able to break down the race into these bite-sized pieces and make it very approachable. Oh, now you may remember that last year at Boston, I did run according to power. I did want to run this race by feel, and I actually felt pretty good. If you haven't already seen my race vlog, it turns out that I did actually win this race, and I led from start to finish. Now, for the first mile and a half, the half marathoners were running with the 5K runners, so there was a couple of people in front of me, but as soon as the 5K runners broke off, I was on my own. I was following a guy on a moped, so I always knew where I was going. But I do question, could I have run faster had I been running with someone? If I didn't have to maintain the pace with only me there to motivate myself, could I have run a little faster? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. During this race, I'm very happy with how it went, but I didn't have anyone to chase down. I didn't have anyone to pace me at a certain pace. So I think it's entirely possible that I could have run slightly faster had I had a little more motivation, and that motivation being someone else to run with. Anyway, all in all, a very good race. I'm very happy with how it turned out. It was a beautiful day, and I do have to say that my performance was 100% weather-based. It is what it is. I still put in the work to get there, and I'm pretty happy with it. And the best part is that it didn't absolutely kill me. I wasn't thrashed like after a marathon, which I think is the main reason that people flock to the half marathon, because it doesn't ruin your life for the 2 weeks after the race. You're not 100% thrashed. But my week of running after the race went pretty well. Still had heavy legs, but I was feeling all right. So ultimately, I did have a very easy week of running. Didn't do any speed work, and it started off on Monday with 7.5 miles, very easy. Followed by Tuesday, 7.6 miles, also very easy running. Wednesday went a little further, 10 miles, very easy. Now, Wednesday was a day that I felt my legs getting slightly better. I could tell that they were recovering and they weren't as heavy as they were on Monday and Tuesday. And then on Thursday, I did go over to Nathan Bennison Park and I met up with some people from the local running group, and I ran with them for about 6 miles. But I also decided to run to the park and run home, so I ended up with a total of 15.1 miles on Thursday. And then on Thursday, I did also include 4 30-second pickups, which felt pretty good. I'm quite happy I didn't have to do more than 4, but I didn't mind doing just 4 of them. And then Friday, 6 days after my half marathon, I took a day off, and I was pretty glad to not run that day. Now, I did ride my Peloton. I did also go to the gym and do a short weight workout, but there was no running. Saturday, I knocked out 13.3 miles, very easy, just going out. That was supposed to be my longest run of the week if I hadn't have run a little longer on Thursday. But still, it was good to get just a little longer run on the week where I usually can't run as much as I do on other weeks, if that makes sense. And then I wrapped up the week on Sunday with 7.6 miles, mostly very easy, but I did run over to the mall and I ran up and down the hill like I do every couple of weeks. So with that, it brings my week's total to 61.1 miles, which is about 98.3 kilometers. So all in all, pretty fantastic week as far as a recovery week goes. At the end of the week, I was feeling pretty good. Not totally recovered from the Punta half marathon, but my legs are feeling remarkably better. Still a little heavy, but better. Guys, if you have made it to this point in the video, first of all, thank you very much. Second of all, why don't you put the fortune cookie emoji in the comments so I know that you've made it all the way to the end, and I wish you all very good fortune. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.